So, let me be the first to apologize. This video was actually supposed to come out like 2 days ago. It was supposed to come out the day of Halloween because I wanted to do a Halloween-esque video about me talking about the top 5 most disturbing moments in Tokyo Ghoul, but I didn't really like the way how the video turned out, so I decided to not upload it. It just kind of came across as me just rambling, and it just wasn't as structured as I'd like it to be. Like, obviously, I don't script my videos. I have before, but I'm not. That's not really my thing. I kind of just want to go off the top of my head. I usually have like a note card down. I didn't have any of that for that video, so it was just really, really off the cuff and just did not come out the way how I liked it. It was just very ugly. So I decided not to upload it. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do a top 5. Instead, I'm just going to talk about what would have been the #1 slot if that video did come up, which is indeed the most disturbing moment, in my personal opinion, in all of Tokyo Ghoul, by far the most dark backstory that we get in Tokyo Ghoul, which is Mutsuki's backstory. Now, obviously, I do know the controversy around Mutsuki. There's a lot of things that are a little bit up in the air that people aren't okay with when it comes to Mutsuki, whether it is her gender, or her gender, or the way how she was developed within the Tokyo Ghoul manga. Mutsuki, in my personal opinion, she's one of my favorite characters. I think she's very well developed. Now, her development around the end, I don't necessarily 100% agree with, or even the promotion that she ended up getting at the very end of the manga, but Mutsuki is very tragic in a lot of ways, and I feel like because of the things that she did to Toka, and her wanting to come across and, just harm Toka, is what caused a lot of people to kind of like just ignore all the other things about Mutsuki that make her likable. And people's hatred for that character is what caused a lot of people, I feel like, to forget the things that she went through. And not to mention, I mean, even when the backstory was revealed with Mutsuki, about everything that went on in chapter 78, a lot of people were flipping out and were like, oh, this came out of nowhere, there was no foreshadowing, blah, 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 which, I mean, if you're one of those people, you're pretty dumb, because if you pay attention to the manga, there's several scenes where Mutsuki blacks out, and you're like, oh, like, why did she black out? And then we just cut back and Mutsuki is just there, and she survived, and sometimes she's covered in blood, sometimes she's not. Obviously, it wasn't to the point of what we saw in her backstory, but we knew that there was something most likely up. And seeing everything that went on with Mutsuki, especially where there's like other subtle foreshadowing, like the fact that her and Suzuya got along quite a bit, and Suzuya has been accused, back in the day, of having very disturbing and murderous tendencies. Suishida was kind of sprinkling in that, yeah, Mutsuki's not all the way there, and she is a psychopath. So, yeah. Now, another thing I do want to say real quick before I start angering a lot of people, for the sake of this video, I am going to call Mutsuki a she, because even though she does identify as male, at least in the beginning part of the manga, it does seem like that she is sort of acknowledging the fact that she is a woman, later on. And honestly, it's a fictional character. I really can care less. Obviously, if it was like a real person, I would call them by the gender that they identify as. Mutsuki, I'm calling Mutsuki a she because it's just, like, everybody recognizes Mutsuki as a chick anyway. So, let's just get into this. For the people that are mad about that, that's my answer. Anyways, now, the reason why I say that Mutsuki's backstory, out of all the backstories that we got in Tokyo Ghoul, which there are some dark backstories, for example, Kaneki, the realization that Kaneki was actually being beaten by his mother, and not that Kaneki, in reality, that his mother was a good person like we always thought, that is pretty bad. The only other backstory that I feel like rivals this one is possibly Suzuya's, just because of how disturbing Suzuya's backstory I feel like really is as well, where we get scenes, for example, that he had his balls crushed by a mallet, which is pretty bad, and the hooks that we see coming through his back in the manga interpretation, and even the fact that he was raised by a ghoul who happened to be a man dressed up as a woman. There's just a lot of messed up things with Suzuya, and the only other backstory I feel like in the series that could really be considered the most disturbing besides Mutsuki's is Suzuya's, in my personal opinion. So people saying that it's either between this or that, I can understand, and I can definitely agree with that. But what shocks me so much about Mutsuki's backstory, and why it's always the backstory that I reread constantly, and I'm just like, God, you did not deserve this, is because when we're introduced to Mutsuki, she is by far like this, like, she's a sweetie pie, if we're being real, alright? Like, you would look at her and just, or him, and just think, like, why would anyone want to cause harm to you? And you see the way how Mutsuki's raised, and it's just awful. Like, Mutsuki comes across as this very kind person, very timid, always is obeying Heisei Sasaki, and clearly shows the most respect to him out of all the members of the Quink Squad. Obviously, I feel like characters like Shirazu did come around very quickly, and seems to have some type of respect for Heisei, but he wasn't necessarily following all of Heisei's orders, whereas someone like Mutsuki was clearly training directly under Heisei and seemed to have the closest bond with him compared to anyone else in the Quink Squad. And when you get to see everything that happens where, you know, Mutsuki gets taken by Torso, and we know how twisted and messed up Torso is, and Torso even, like, goes on this whole entire spiel and this backstory revealing what exactly was going on with him, and how he ended up gaining the Torso tendencies from his father, and Mutsuki, after everything that happens with Torso, she ends up, adapting and gaining those tendencies as well. Is just really, really sad and really messed up, because what happens in Mutsuki's backstory, for the people that either don't remember or happen to be anime only and are curious what exactly happened with Mutsuki that was completely skipped in the anime version, for, I'm assuming, censorship reasons, if I had to guess, besides the fact of, like, them obviously rushing through Rue Island. I think it's censorship, because Mutsuki, when we go to her backstory, we see that not only did she grow up in a very abusive household, the way how her father treated her, he abused her physically, emotionally, and even sexually, which is really messed up. You see the way how he is dunking her head inside of that tub, and, you know, it's implied that he did have his way with her at the end of that as well. It's just really screwed up. And you can see how Mutsuki, after all of this happens, and the fact that her brother didn't do anything to help, though I think it was stated that her brother was younger than her, if I'm not mistaken, and Mutsuki at that point looked like that she was probably, like, in her mid-teens, like, probably, like, 14-ish years old. She didn't look very old, and the fact that her mother didn't do anything but watch, obviously her mother wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna let that happen to you, blah, blah, blah. It seemed like that Mutsuki's mother would probably get abused as well, if I had to guess, just based off of the way how she was, you know, looking at the situation, how she was crying and stuff, and how Mutsuki, after all this stuff happened, just mentally snapped and just lost control and slaughtered her entire family, her brother, her mother, and her father. And you see the way how she's just beating her dad's face in with the axe. It's just an awful scene, because stuff like this happens in real life, and that's the part that probably resonates with me the most, where I'm just kind of like, Jesus Christ, like, this is like the stuff that you see on TV, that you hear on the news and read in newspaper articles and online articles and stuff that people post about, children becoming killers. And it's just, that's the thing that's so disturbing to me. Because I actually wrote a report about a child murder case in my high school year for my English class. It was actually it was kind of a fun report seeing, because, okay, I'm not even getting into that. That's like a topic for another day. I might tell that story on a live stream, but just seeing how realistic that scene was, and how at the very end, Mutsuki was so far gone that she didn't even realize it was her who did everything, and it wasn't just a flat-out lie. Because one thing about Mutsuki and Kaneki that they have in common is the fact that they're both liars. It's just one thing that connects them, and it's one thing that I find very interesting about them that isn't really specified on too much in the entirety of the Tokyo Ghoul story, unfortunately. And I feel like it really does tie into why exactly Mutsuki loves Kaneki so much, because it's a very strong familiarity between the two of them, where even though obviously Kaneki doesn't acknowledge Mutsuki's feelings in that type of way, because, you know, he loves Toka. The way how Mutsuki kind of looks at Heise in this very different way in comparison to all the other Quinks members, I think is really messed up as well. Now, going back to the backstory, because I'm starting to go on the lines of like a Mutsuki analysis, and trust me, I will do an analysis of probably Mutsuki and Urei at some point in the future, because, you know, I would like to talk about all the Quinks members, but realistically, there isn't a whole lot I can talk about when it comes to most of them. I guess I can do one for Shirazu maybe one time in the future, but Mutsuki and Urei I probably will do at some point. I don't really know necessarily when, but back to the backstory, the fact that it wasn't just a flat-out lie that Mutsuki told, that the reason why her family's dead is because of a ghoul, she believed that lie. She wanted that to be the truth, and she didn't take responsibility for the fact that she was the one who killed all of them. The one that she took the lives of 2 innocent people in her family, being her mother and her brother, and she ended up killing a very awful man and her father. And it's just funny to me that despite all that, and the fact that she wanted to forget everything that happened, she couldn't, and that's the main reason why she ended up putting a veil, some type of mask on herself and identifying as a man, because she doesn't really want to be a woman. Because, look, I'm not trying to sound sexist when I say this. This is just looking at it from an analytical point of view and the way how Mutsuki perceives the world. Mutsuki views herself being a woman as weak. She sees being a woman as a weakness, and that's the main reason why she looks at her, identifies herself as a man in order to consider herself strong. And I feel like because of that, that's what really kind of puts Mutsuki in this really weird standpoint on, like, out of all the Tokyo Ghoul characters, how her mindset is definitely the most, or maybe not the most psychotic, because I feel like Kaneki's pretty insane, if we're being real. Same thing with Takizawa, but Mutsuki is definitely top 5 when it comes to most insane characters in all of TG. But also seeing the way how after the torso stuff, and I guess remembering everything from her flashback, the fact that she was the one who was killing all of those innocent animals, she was skinning them and killing them, which is a very murderous trait that a lot of people exhibit when they're young, people who are young exhibit when they end up becoming murderers. Not all people, obviously. And just stuff like that, and how Mutsuki is just kind of like a stereotypical serial killer, which is really weird in the grand aspect of Tokyo Ghoul, because, I mean, like, you see ghouls all the time killing people, and you don't really bat an eye to it, because you're just like, oh, like, that's pretty bad. But the fact that how secretive Mutsuki is of that, and the fact that she's supposed to be fighting on the side of justice, is really disturbing. That CCG recruited a serial killer in order to become a Quinks member, and even a person who is going to slaughter ghouls, and it even ties back into how corrupted CCG actually is. So that's kind of one thing I want to say about that. Now, one thing I also want to bring up before I finish off this video is how much Mutsuki changed after the events of Torso, and also the event of, you know, remembering her backstory, and that she ended up adapting the habits of another serial killer, which I think is really interesting. The fact that she ended up causing Torso to become a Torso. And, you know, we even see other signs, like the fact that she was hunting Toka and how she had the fake Yoriko arm, which to this day, I still don't know where she got that arm from. I don't think they explained where she got it from. Obviously, it wasn't Yoriko's arm, like, we all know that, but I can't remember if it was an arm of a actual human being, or if it was an arm of a ghoul, because there's actually a scene that a lot of people forget, and I remember someone explaining this to me, like, back when this chapter first dropped. But after Rue Island and all this stuff happens, you have where Psycho and Mutsuki actually have a conversation with each other, and Mutsuki reveals to Psycho, like, yeah, I'm a girl, and Psycho says something on the lines of, like, oh, I smell a lot of blood on you, Muchan. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's just Mutsuki, like, Psycho realizing that, oh, Mutsuki has blood on her because she's killing people. But the main reason why Mutsuki revealed herself to be a woman at that point in time, even though Psycho and Urei obviously already knew, which you can assume Shirazu probably did as well, but was because, obviously women go through their menstrual cycle and they bleed. that's the main reason. She was trying to do it to cover it up. It wasn't like, oh, I'm opening up to you and that stuff. It was a cover up for the fact that she's killing people, that she's killing innocent people, and she has the freaking thick smell of iron on her body. So, like, I mean, Mutsuki to me is just an extremely intriguing character, and it's really unfortunate that Suishida didn't go a full-on finished, have her character arc go full circle. But in my personal opinion, I think Mutsuki has probably the most disturbing backstory, just due to the fact of how awful it is and how vivid Suishida's art is, especially when she's like hacking her dad's face with a freaking knife, and how she ended up raping Uta later on. This video is probably gonna get flagged now I think about it, all the stuff I'm saying, but Mutsuki is just very interesting to me. So anyways, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe as always. If there's anything else you'd like me to talk about Tokyo Ghoul, just comment down below. I wasn't originally going to drop this video today, as you could hear in my Speed of Sound Sonic video, which should be dropping very soon actually. It should actually come out before this video comes out, but I just wanted to talk about this because I felt obligated, because I promised I was going to make a video on Halloween, but I didn't. And even though this video is late, you guys actually have something to watch now. So anyways, thank you for watching. Remember to comment, rate, subscribe as always, guys. Love you all. Hawk signing out. See you guys.